Yes, Kentucky basketball has a massive showdown with Tennessee in the Sweet 16 coming up, but the Cats, they're getting active, and I mean active in the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, I figured it's time to talk about the transfer portal with the Cats, and there was no better person to talk to than Jacob Polacheck of Kentucky Sports Radio, KSR+. I really appreciate him hopping on to talk about all the different guys Kentucky's getting active with in the transfer portal. I think we discussed 6 or 7 guys. I mean, it has just been crazy how many players have already entered and how many players the Cats have talked to. So we're going to break all those guys down here on today's show. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. Hey, if you're listening on podcast, I would love it if you subscribed there as well. All right, guys, before we get into our conversation with Jacob Polacheck of KSR+, just want to remind you guys, hey, if you want to know anything going on with the transfer portal, those guys over at On3, Polacheck specifically, they do a great job there, breaking down what's going on behind the scenes, both in high school and in portal recruiting. I really appreciate him hopping on the show today. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Jacob Polacheck. We're now excited to be joined by Jacob Polacheck of KSR, star behind the scenes there at KSR+, breaking down all things transfer portal right now. Jacob, it's a crazy time to be a Kentucky Wildcats fan, obviously with the transfer portal opening up here just a few days ago. Over 1,000 players already in this thing. Kentucky's all over the place. Mark Pope's talked about it. You've talked about it a ton there at KSR+, and wanted to have you on to kind of break down what exactly is going on here with Kentucky and some of their top prospects. Obviously, no commitments yet. We've hardly seen any major commitments here in the portal outside of maybe Owen Freeman to Creighton, but there's a guy here at the top that a lot of high-profile programs are really interested in, and that's Donovan Dent out of New Mexico, the star junior guard, averaged over 20 points per game this past season. This is the guy that I wanted to start with because he's the one that excites me the most and obviously excites a lot of Kentucky fans the most because it's a 5-star transfer, not necessarily by high school ranking, but you know what I mean. So kind of what's been going on with you over at KSR+, and kind of take me through what's going on with Donovan Dent in Kentucky here.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I love your show. And with KSR+, we're covering basically all the movement in the transfer portal with Kentucky. It's a bit hard right now, given that they're still in the tournament. The focus is not all on the transfer portal, but they are still making a dent, not to make a pun there, making a dent in the transfer portal. And Donovan Dent, yeah, he is probably the number one player in the portal. Some sites have him ranked a little lower, and then you got Bennett Sturts, who is already committed. So I would say Dent is probably the best uncommitted player in the portal right now. And Kentucky is making a push. Dent told me that he wants to make a commitment very soon, potentially by April 1st or 2nd at the latest. That could come as soon as this weekend. I put over on the KS board last night that Kentucky's in the process of setting up a Zoom call with him. I expect that, obviously, with the short time frame, to be sometime this week. Obviously, they're preparing for Tennessee tomorrow, so that could happen as soon as today, maybe on Saturday. But he is the number one name I'm watching. A lot of schools are involved early. Basically, I was told that every blue blood is involved. Everyone that's looking for a guard in the portal is probably after this guy. The schools that I hear the most are Kentucky, Duke, and then I'm hearing a lot about Richard Pitino now at Xavier. A lot of people have kind of assumed that he'll be going to Xavier and following Richard Pitino. I'm not sure that's the case. Now that you've got Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, all the blue bloods going after him, it's going to be a lot harder sell to go to a school like Xavier. Nothing against Xavier, but when you have the big dogs to say calling you, it's hard to turn them down.
Absolutely. And when you look at what this kid does here offensively for New Mexico, I mean, he kind of drove the bus at the 35% assist rate, which is just absolutely phenomenal. He was a plus 40% 3-point shooter. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his effective field goal percentage on catch and shoot was like his shots was like 75 something percent, which was in it right now, as far as portal players go, is in the 100th percentile. Just to give you an idea, Kobe Brea was in the 100th percentile coming out of the portal last year. And I believe Kirk Risa was 99th percentile as far as catch and shoot stuff goes. So this kid is a legitimate shooter, 6'2", 185 pounds. Again, like I mentioned, 20.4 points per game. Again, 40% from three. You would love to add somebody like this to your roster to kind of give you somebody that can be that machine in your backcourt alongside maybe someone like Otega Oweh next season. Obviously, we know how much Mark Pope likes to play stuff through the five. So if you're able to get somebody that can also run that offense and be that efficient of a passer as Dent is there in the backcourt, it really does give you kind of a three-headed monster there, possibly with Oweh, Dent, and then whoever you want to have there at the five. I'm really, really excited to see kind of where this recruitment goes here over the next few days, because like you said, it's going to pop pretty quick, and a lot of guys are involved. So really excited to see what happens with Dent. There's another guard in the portal here that I'm also fired up about, a kid from UNLV, and you can tell me a little bit more about him, Jacob, if you will. Dedan Thomas, another guy who's a high-profile scorer, a lefty, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong on that, but this kid is an absolute bucket. What has Kentucky got to say here as far as their involvement with Thomas?
Yeah, Dedan Thomas, he is a lefty who would make a pretty interesting backcourt with a Caden Lewis and Jasper Johnson coming in, another two lefties. I was told that the Kentucky staff is working to set up a Zoom with him sometime this week to set a visit. Donovan Dent will not be taking visits. Dedan Thomas, it sounds like he's got a little bit longer of a timeline and plans on getting on campus at some of these schools. So that one is a little bit more of a wait and see approach with Kentucky still in the tournament. But I would keep my eyes peeled to seeing when that Zoom happens and when they set a visit. The other school that I'm hearing with him is Florida. Florida's coming up a lot. I know, obviously, Walter Clayton will be leaving. They've got one of the best backcourts in the country this season. So bringing in a guy like that with multiple years of eligibility remaining would make a lot of sense for Florida, as it would for Kentucky, of course.
All right, before we continue along here on this fascinating transfer portal edition of Locked On Kentucky, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where exactly did all my money go? I know I do that pretty often. Between dining, going out, online shopping, entertainment, it's really easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Because Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending. It's all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner also is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thomas here is somebody that intrigues me when you talk about what Kentucky wants to do long term. Because like you just mentioned, Caden Lewis, Jasper Johnson, both those guys coming in next season as freshmen. My assumption is that at least one of them will want to stay multiple years within the program. You also start to think about Colin Chandler coming back for his sophomore season. And then somebody like Thomas, who is also a sophomore. I mean, there's a very good chance Kentucky could get a lot of these guys to stick around multiple years. And then you start to ask the question, okay, what does Kentucky's long-term prospects look like in that backcourt? And you start to project out a pretty strong case to make for Kentucky to have one of the better backcourts in the entire country. here in just a couple of seasons. I think that's like you mentioned, the Gators. I think that's kind of what you've seen here with Clayton and Martin, two guys that, if I'm not mistaken, were both there at Florida a season ago, able to get a year in the SEC under their belt. They come back, an extremely experienced roster, and they kind of make things go. Somebody like Thomas, somebody like Dent, alongside guys like Lewis and Jasper, I think could be incredible for the Cats next season. There's a guy that, if I'm not mistaken, is not an underclassman, somebody that is known for a strictly one thing, and that is getting buckets out of the transfer portal, and that is Treysen Eaglestaff. He's like one of three players we've talked about here on the show so far. I'm so glad I'm having you on today, man, because I have been so overwhelmed with Kentucky in the postseason that I've not gotten a chance to really look at these guys. But Eaglestaff is a guy that I've talked about a lot, both positively and negatively, because of just how good he can be offensively, and also some question marks on defense. He's a guy that Kentucky is involved with right now. Kind of what's your take on Eaglestaff and what's going on with the Cats?
Yeah, before I get into Eaglestaff, I do want to mention one thing on the backcourt, guys. I've heard a lot of people talking about, is bringing in a star transfer guard like Dent or Thomas going to dissuade guys like a Caden Lewis and Jasper Johnson from sticking with their commitments and going to Kentucky? Right. I don't get that to be the case. I think the consensus that I've heard from both those camps is that the expectation is they bring in a vet guard to help those guys come along. So I wouldn't have any concerns about those guys decommitting. But yeah, Treysen Eaglestaff, let's talk about him, because he actually had a Zoom meeting with the Kentucky staff on Wednesday. I'm still waiting to get an update on how that went, but Kentucky's making a really strong push for Eaglestaff. They value his size and shooting, and I think that he's really one of the best scorers in the portal. We saw what he did against Alabama. We saw what he did in the conference tournament. He can bring in to play. You can bring him in to play one specific role and do it really well, which we've seen Mark Pope do with a lot of the players he's brought in this season.
Yeah, I guess that's where it kind of ends for me. If we're kind of looking at whether or not Kentucky does end up either having a very, very, very serious shot at ending this, getting this kid at the end of the day, or if he ends up committing, is that, well, for maybe some of the defensive concerns for any of these guys coming out of the portal, I think the big positive takeaway that we can have here is two things. Number one, like you mentioned, Mark Pope has been able to kind of take a bunch of different guys and that are good at various things and kind of assign them different roles and make the offense work really, really well. And you also see, I think, defensively, the second thing here, the improvement throughout the course of the season. This is something I've continued to harp on over and over and over and over, Jacob, and I'm sure you guys at KSR have also kind of dug into this as far as how good Kentucky has gotten defensively as of late. After they gave up 98 points to Ole Miss on February 4th, I want to say, they were 112th in adjusted defensive efficiency on KenPom. Last time I checked, and I can check it again here, they were 45th. They're currently 46th, according to KenPom. But that's just such a major development there, I think, for Kentucky late in the season. And if you're a transfer portal guard, somebody like Eaglestaff, somebody like Dent, somebody like Thomas, there are guys here that I think if you bring them in, they can at least expect to commit to a role, right? But also to improve in a variety of ways. If any of these guys want a shot at the NBA, I mean, Mark Pope has proven that he can turn a roster and make them look really, really good. And I think that somebody like Eaglestaff would have the opportunity to do that. Or are there any thoughts between those three guys there that you're looking at one of them saying, okay, if I'm a Kentucky fan, between Dent, Thomas, and Eaglestaff, I want this guy definitively. I would love to have this guy if I don't get anybody else.
For me, it's Dent. He is probably the best player in the portal right now. 20 point a game scorer. And you also have the added fact that he wants to make that quick decision. So my thought process with this is go all in on Dent, see if you can land him. And if you can't, hey, it's the beginning of April. You still got all this time with these other guys. He's the kind of guy that you go all in on right now and see what you can do, because that would be a major splash in the portal.
Speaking of potentially another major splash with a 20-point plus score, we've got Lamar Wilkerson here out of Sam Houston State. Now, you can probably speak a little bit to more kind of what Wilkerson can do possibly for the Cats outside of just what I'm seeing here statistically. 20.5 points per game, 44% from three on 7.7 3-point shots per game. This guy seems like a legit offensive weapon at 6'4". Take me through what's going on with him and the Cats. This is a bucket looking like right here.
Yeah, he's clearly a priority for Kentucky. He's a guy that you mentioned is a bucket. The thing that's really interesting about him is, yes, he can shoot, but he increased his 3-point percentage by 10% from the previous season to this past season, which shows that he's got a lot of room to grow and he can keep getting better. The school that I keep hearing with him is Arkansas. He's an Arkansas native. They've been pursuing him for a long time. They watched him a lot out of high school. So they're a school to watch, but I wouldn't count out Kentucky in this. I think there's mutual interest there, or I know there's mutual interest there. I think that they are in a good position if they can go all in very soon.
Lamar seems like somebody that would also fit, I think, very well in a Mark Pope system, just throwing it out there with 44% on 7.7 shots per game. Before we continue, Jacob, kind of breaking down a couple of different prospects that Kentucky has reached out to, just to remind everybody, if they want to go check out anything going on with the portal, anything going on with Kentucky behind the scenes, recruiting wise, whether that be in the portal or in the high school ranks, remind everybody where you're at and where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, you can find my stuff on KSR Plus. I'm posting stories on KSR Plus every day. And then I've got basically minute by minute, if not hourly updates over on the KS board. I posted an update on Donovan Dent last night, and we'll have a few more updates as we go throughout the day today. We're filming this early in the morning. So a lot to happen. And yeah, KSR Plus, we've gotten hundreds of new members in the last few days. So it's great to see everyone joining the board.
A lot of work that Jacob is putting in over there at KSR Plus, doing great work keeping the Kentucky fan base informed on what's going on in the portal. And there's a lot right now. It is just absolutely exploded, despite there being a monster matchup with Tennessee in the Sweet 16 tomorrow in Indianapolis. Before we move, this was something I wanted to just throw out there. So Ken Pom does this thing where if you go look at a player profile, it will show you similar players statistically that performed very similar statistically, and it'll give multiple different guys. The two comps that you're looking at here for Thomas out of UNLV, Kemba Walker and Trey Burke. Those are his two comparisons. So maybe, hey, look, if you're not able to get Dent and you are able to get Thomas, maybe at the end of the day, that's not the worst thing on the planet if you're getting somebody that's being comped to Kemba Walker. And I've only seen just a little bit of what this kid's got going on, but he's got a lot cooking in the mid-range, it seems like. It's Walker-esque, I'll say that.
Yeah, if he's half as good as those guys were in the NCAA tournament, you're in good shape if you're Kentucky. And yeah, he's a young kid, so you're getting him for multiple years. I think that would excite a lot of Kentucky fans if he were to come to Lexington.
All right, before we continue along here on our conversation with Jacob Polacheck of Kentucky Sports Radio, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Nissan. We're all about the stats here at Locked On Kentucky because, well, numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level with the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds. It can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger moments. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. You can take your adventures to new heights with the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. You can learn more at nissanusa.com. Speaking of another player that might really get Kentucky fans fired up, if he was able to find his way over to Lexington, Alvaro Folgueiras out of Robert Morris, a forward, if I'm not mistaken, was cooking a little bit there in the NCAA tournament here. What do we know about Folgueiras and what Kentucky has to say about him?
Yeah, he's an interesting one to watch. I know Matt Jones over at KSR was the first to break that Kentucky would be involved. I've heard of a lot of Kentucky buzz there. I think that I'm not ready to call them the favorite, but I haven't heard anyone else that has been as involved as Kentucky. I'm hearing a couple other SEC schools may be involved and some Big Ten schools, but Kentucky is the school I'm hearing about the most with him, 6'9" power forward from Robert Morris. That's going to be one to watch. Honestly, I haven't heard anything about a commitment time frame, but if he were the first player to commit out of this group, it would not surprise me.
Something interesting about him, to go along with kind of our theme here today, Jacob, another sophomore. Somebody that would play possibly multiple years with Mark Pope in this Kentucky team. I've not gotten a chance to, and maybe I shouldn't speak this into existence because of the fact that we have a massive game tomorrow. I've not really gotten a chance to kind of think about the long-term prospects with Mark Pope in Kentucky. But man, if he starts picking up guys like this in the portal, you're not looking, I don't necessarily think at next year being the year that Kentucky really takes off. You're looking at the 2026-2027 season. You're looking at year 3 with Mark Pope, where you've got guys possibly like Folgueiras or maybe Thomas, where you start to see some guys go through this program and develop. You're seeing somebody like a junior year Colin Chandler pop off. Maybe you're seeing somebody like Thomas entering what would be, as I assume, his senior year, possibly. So this sets up, man, with who Kentucky's going after right now. Some of these high profile guys with them still having multiple years, it sets up for a very, very promising future for the Cats. Just looking at some of these stats here for Folgueiras, almost 14 points per game, shooting 41.5% from 3, almost 9 boards, 3 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.3 blocks. He kind of did a little bit of everything here for Robert Morris. Played well against Alabama, 15 points against them. Proven against SEC competition. Now, Robert Morris overall, were they the best team in the field? Not necessarily, but I mean, hey, with the way that he was able to compete against the Crimson Tide at 6'9", I'll take somebody like that, absolutely.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting to note with him is he has the same agent as Andrew Carr, so there is a Kentucky connection there. We'll see what happens, but that's just one interesting connection I want to point out.
And speaking of the Kentucky pipeline, Kentucky San Diego State, we might be seeing something cook there with a new 7-footer here, a freshman. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you can check me on this. Was he the defensive player of the year in the Mountain West? Am I hearing that correctly? Another Mountain West DPOI has entered the transfer portal. Kentucky has gotten involved. Tell me what we know about this kid.
Yeah, Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year, Mountain West Freshman of the Year. I had someone text me, someone who covers San Diego State text me, he will be in the NBA in a year. He is that good. He is a pro player, 7 feet tall. He will fit in seamlessly if he ends up at Kentucky. And he's been going around telling people the 3 schools that are making him a priority are Kentucky, Michigan, and Washington. I haven't heard anything about any visits set yet, but those are the 3 schools making him a priority. So if you're Kentucky, you're pretty happy to be in that top group right away.
Looking at some of his stats, Magoon Gwath, 8.5 points per game, 50% from the field, while also shooting 37.8% from 3. But again, the most interesting thing about this kid is the ability to defend the rim. 7 feet, 205 pounds, but was 4th in the nation in block percentage at 14.1%. That's what Kentucky is going after. At least that's the thing I've been harping on throughout the course of the end of this season, is if Kentucky is going to make waves in the portal, they've got to go after some guys that can protect this rim. And look, I've been saying specifically, they need to go after guys that are big, physical, that have that weight to them. But I mean, hey, if you're 7 foot, 200 pounds, and you're still blocking shots like it's nobody's business, I absolutely, I will take that, especially if you're hearing maybe some NBA potential here in the long term. So we've got Folgueiras, we've got Gwath, we've got Wilkerson, Eaglestaff, Thomas, who could potentially be Kimball Walker, apparently, Donovan Dent. I mean, Kentucky's going after a bunch of different guys here that could end up being some major big-time playmakers. And look, Jacob, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more than I can, but just based on what we've seen this year, I mean, if you're a transfer portal player, if you're one of the best guys here coming out of whatever college you're coming from, looking for a new opportunity, looking for maybe some more NIL, I don't see why on earth, after seeing what Mark Pope did in year one, that you would look anywhere else but Kentucky. Would you agree with that?
I would completely agree with that. I think Kentucky will be among the most desirable destinations in the transfer portal, especially if they can keep making this run in the tournament, get past the Sweet 16. It's only helping their case to transfer portal players. And one interesting thing is last year, Mark Pope had to build an entirely new roster. So he couldn't exactly be selective with players. He could select players he liked, but he just had to fill out a roster. He couldn't fill guys for a specific role per se. This year, he can be a lot more selective with some guys returning, with some recruits already in the fold. So expect that to happen and expect things to move quickly, because what I'm hearing is with the House settlement set to be finalized sometime early next month, a lot of kids are going to want to make their college decisions before that. So I'm expecting commitments to be popping off here in the next few weeks.
Before we get you out of here, Jacob, really quick, remind everybody where they can find you and your incredible work. And then also just some brief predictions here for Kentucky, Tennessee tomorrow.
All right. Well, you can find my work over on ksrplus.com. We're putting updates on the KS board every day, every hour at this point. You can find my work on social media at Polacheck KSR. And yeah, my predictions for Kentucky, Tennessee, I'm saying an 86-81 Kentucky win. I think it'll be relatively high scoring, and I think that bodes well for the Cats.
Yeah, let's see if this is third time the charm for the Vols, or Kentucky get it done to advance to the Elite Eight for the first time in what feels like forever for this fan base. For first time in forever for me, because when I started doing this show, I had not seen Kentucky win more than one game in the NCAA tournament. This year finally bucks that trend. And apparently everybody and their mother on the internet thinks that it's impossible to beat a team 3 times in a row. If you're a Kentucky fan, you can immediately say, look at what happened against Alabama this year. Okay. Anyway, Jacob, really appreciate you coming on the show here today. Again, guys, if you want updates on what's going on in the portal, highly encourage you to go check out Jacob's work over at KSR Plus. It's the place to go if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes with Kentucky and what's going on in the transfer portal. Jacob, again, thank you so much for hopping on, man. This has been a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love your show.
All right, that was our conversation with Jacob Polacheck of Kentucky Sports Radio, KSR Plus. Love what Kentucky's doing in the transfer portal right now. Look, guys, I know that these transfer portal episodes are ones that you guys love, breaking down different guys in the portal that Kentucky's going after. So I want to just remind you guys, hey, if you like this type stuff, would love it if you left a like on the video. If you wanted to let me know what your thoughts were in the comments about Kentucky and then the portal, what they've got going on, would really appreciate it. And if you want to see guys like Jacob Polacheck hop on and break down what's going on in the portal, leave a like, let me know. KSR Plus is, again, where you can find all of his work. I mean, he is the guy. If you want to know anything going on with Kentucky in the transfer portal, Jacob Polacheck is your man. Go follow him on Twitter as well. He just does so much work for them right now. And look, I know that the season, we've got Friday here tomorrow, a massive matchup with the Tennessee Volunteers. But look, there's no better place right now to go get your transfer portal news. And there's no better time to talk about transfer portal stuff because it opened up on Monday and over 1,000 guys have already entered, just names flying all over the place. Kentucky's already reached out to a dozen plus kids. I mean, you have to discuss, if you're a Kentucky fan, what's going on right now. So Locked On Kentucky, will break it all down here, the stats, what we think about how it fits with the roster. Jacob Polacheck, KSR Plus there. You can go find his stuff there. Would really, really encourage you to go take a look at it. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. You can hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for what is hopefully a big time episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. and God bless.